Hey everybody, welcome to the NC State Insider Podcast. I'm your host and lead beat writer Tucker Sennett, back again for another episode. It's game day. We've arrived to week two. NC State taking on Virginia in just a few hours. Both teams come into the game 1-0. It's a big game for momentum for the season. Virginia is trying to sort of spark their rebuild and continue to improve under head coach Tony Elliott in his, I think, fourth year now, third year, fourth.
For sure, it's fourth.
Okay, fourth year. Yeah, because they've had two back-to-back 3-win seasons. Gotta know my stats better. But before we kind of break into our final game day preview here, Dan, how are you?
Doing good, doing good. The NFL football is on the past two nights.
Yep.
So we're feasting. We're feasting. Got a pretty not as exciting as last week, but a pretty decent college football slate today. So
It's certainly not it's not loaded, but there's some sneaky good games, including
yeah,
this one.
yeah.
This game is on ESPN2, kicks off at noon Eastern. So, clearly some attention on these two programs. Should be a good game day at Carter-Finley Stadium. So for the episode today, just our regular game day preview. We're going to run through some stat projections for both teams, then sort of give our overall predictions for how the game is going to go. Then we'll give you a worst case scenario for NC State, and then finish up with one bold prediction for something that's going to happen in the game, and then of course our final score. Um, Dan, I'm happy to get started with the stat projections if you're ready to go here.
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Okay. Um, Starts with CJ Bailey for me. I think he builds upon that solid performance in that week one game against ECU. I don't think he's going to throw for over 300 yards again. I just don't see it against a power conference defense quite yet. I think we're building um, to that. And I think, he's going to have a breakout game against one of these stronger opponents. I just think it's a little early with Kurt Roper's new offense. So I got him thrown for about 250 yards and a pair of touchdowns today. I think he finds a little bit more comfort in the red zone. And I think the team does as a whole as well. Um, Chandler Morris, the Virginia quarterback, we talked a lot about over the course of this week, a real gunslinger. He, I got him just based on the way I think the game is going to flow. I got him thrown for about 270 or 280 yards, that window just below 300. And this is assuming he's at full strength as he did leave the game week one early after that big hit. Um, I think he throws a couple touchdowns, but I also think, given what we've talked about with his, um, how do I say, his tendency to huck it, I think he throws a couple picks in this game. That's
Okay.
and it could be a fumble. I just think he's going to be responsible for a turnover or two, and that's going to be a big momentum swing in the game. His top receiver from last week, I think, continues the form. Won't be as strong a performance as Cam Ross had against Coastal, but I think he hauls in, five catches for 60, 65 yards and a touchdown and works well when he's not matched up against Devin Marshall in this NC State defense. As for the rest of the NC State offense, I got Justin Joe Lee, the tight end, finding his rhythm. I think he hauls in four passes, 40, 45 yards, gets on the scoreboard this week with a touchdown, helps that NC State offense settle in a little better in the red zone. I got Teddy Hoffman continuing the strong start with six catches for 50-ish yards. Um, Still not getting in the end zone, but I think he just gets more snaps this week
Yeah.
after the week one performance, and I think that'll lead to more catches. I think Virginia probably tries to take some of the deep stuff away this week, and I think he'll probably be the most effective receiver in those medium and short situations where they can work with him. And then Hollywood Smothers. NC State struggled to run the ball in week one. I think this week's different. I think this Virginia run defense, even though they played well against Coastal, Coastal got down early, and when teams get down early, you're not looking to run the ball in the same way that you are against, in a game that's tight or a game you have a lead. And I don't really see Virginia storming out in this one. I could be totally wrong there. They might be way better than I'm giving them credit for, but I just don't see it. I think Roper tries to establish the run game early, and I think Smothers finishes with 20, 22 attempts again, and cracks that 100-yard mark with a touchdown. And I think he also gets a little bit more involved in the passing game and catches a touchdown as well.
Okay.
That's what I got for the stat projections. Dan, what do you got?
Yeah, yeah. For the offensive side of the ball,
Oh, we got defense too.
we do have defense.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is exciting.
Um, Offensive side of the ball, I'm gonna think that, or I think that this team is going to dominate on the ground this game. I did come back and say earlier in the week that the offensive line had a rough first week, but I honestly fully believe the front seven of East Carolina, I think, is a little bit more dangerous than Virginia's front seven. I know we talked about Fisher K-Mac a little bit, however you say his last name. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. Big guy, but I think it is bigger. It's hard for those bigger guys to kind of cause that consistent pressure. But regardless, I think CJ Bailey comfortably gets over 200 yards. I don't know if he's going to quite reach 250 like yours, but I think a quiet, 200, one passing touchdown type of game from him is kind of where I see it happening. In terms of running the ball, I think you're going to see a lot of Hollywood Smothers. Maybe this is a bold prediction, but I think at least above 125 rushing yards for him this game. And then I think Duke Scott gets going a little bit. I think we saw some flashes week one, but it wasn't
He
consistent carries.
No, he was in the game kind of consistently in the first
Yeah,
quarter, and then I think based on the game flow, they realized
yeah,
that they could kind of take the top off of that ECU defense, and I think
yeah.
that sort of messed up the initial plan to run the ball, and that's why they took so many shots in that game and went away from Duke.
Yeah, I think this week is you're going to get that full two-headed backfield kind of look that we were kind of anticipating. I'm not saying the Virginia defensive backs are like that, or nor do I believe they're, quote unquote, locked down and they're going to lock down these receivers. I just think they're definitely more talented than the Pirates secondary, and I think you're not going to see as much, many shots succeed down the field, and I think you're going to see a little bit maybe that weakness that we've been talking about, the NC State receiver room. I think if they can continue their strong performances against Virginia this week, then I think we're really going to see that passing game, come to fruition week to week. But this week, I think it takes a step back. I think running the ball is going to be dominant. Jolie, I want to say he gets in the end zone, but I don't think it happens again this week. I think 50 yards is something where I kind of see him going. I think they just got to find a way to get him involved. I know he didn't show it last week on the stat sheet, but he's their best pass catching player on the team.
Yeah.
Um, and I think Teddy Hoffman, I think his passing, or not his passing, his snaps go up. Definitely will see the field more. I don't think he'll do as good. I think you'll see him kind of catch, a little RPO here and there. Don't think he'll really catch anything down the field. I think that's pretty much everyone I have in the offense. I want to get a little crazy and, go like some obscure, like only passing touchdown. I wanted to say like Terrell Anderson's the guy who's going to catch the one touchdown.
Okay.
Just because Bailey missed him wide open down the seam last week.
It's true.
So if it happens, just everyone come back. I called it.
Dan called
I
it.
called it. I called it. That's the only passing touchdown that'll happen. Um, but in terms of the Virginia offense, I don't think they get their run game going. This front seven for NC State last week, they were just all over the field. I think Jamari Taylor and the one for Harrison Whaley, I think they struggle again. to fully get going. So I think it's going to be a Chandler Morris game. A nice little stat is last year he led the FBS in 400 yard passing yard games. So I think he gets over 300 again this week. I
How
think
many did he have?
he had, give me 1 second.
Sorry
Oh,
for
oh,
testing.
you just put me on the spot, but I wrote here he led the nation in 400 yard passing games. I didn't write,
You didn't write how
man,
many?
I didn't write how many. It's okay. We'll
You
do our little
continue, and
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
get the stat for you.
That's bad journalism for me. So terrible. Nonetheless, I think Morris is going to get above 300. I think it's not going to be per se, you know, where he's really dicing up the, you know, NC State defensive four. He had four. Yeah.
Four 400-yard passing games.
Yeah,
Pretty impressive.
he can sling it. But is it going to the right team's hands half the time? We don't know, but he can certainly he's not scared. I think it's going to be a similar case against ECU last week, where realistically, as you're kind of watching that game, it didn't feel like the passing game for the Pirates were was really dominant. But you look at the box score and you're like, he threw for almost 400 yards. Like it's. I think it's going to be a bunch of RPO, a bunch of screens, actions again. Get Cam Ross the ball in space. Maybe someone takes the ball and runs it for 80 yards or something like that.
I
I
just
think
have to
Cam.
I have to share these two stats. So in
Yeah,
his 400-yard passing games, they were 2-2. The two losses were to Memphis and Tulane, two of the better teams in the American.
I
They
can
were both
imagine.
one touchdown games. They
Yeah,
lost to Memphis 52-44, and they lost to Tulane 45-37. He, in the Memphis game, threw the ball 61 times, and
sounds about right.
in the Tulane game, threw the ball 57 times.
He can
So
sling it.
yeah,
He
I
can
mean
sling it.
he
It's
attempted 510 passes, and in those two games, he attempted like probably over a fifth of those passes. So this is a guy that if it's a shootout, there won't be any running the ball.
yeah. And I think that's precisely how it's going to go. Like, I'm not going to say it's going to be a shootout, but I just think the running game of NC State will kind of put the Cavaliers down a little bit and like, oh, we got to come back, got to pass the ball and, just things like that. But yeah, I think Cam Ross leads them in receiving yards. I just don't think they get the run game going, and then Chandler Morris has a good day on to the air.
Okay. Okay, thank you for the stat predictions, Dan.
Sure.
As for, how I think the game's going to go, I think we already talked about a bunch of my kind of feelings. I think Virginia's really going to struggle the ball or struggle to run the ball. And I'm with you on NC State really placing an emphasis on running the ball this week. Um, I think you're probably right about ECU's front being one of the more unique fronts schematically that NC State's going to see this year in terms of what they're throwing at the run game. But I just I think this you can't count on Bailey winning these games for you week in and week out. You're going to have to give him some help, and I think
Yeah.
that'll be a major point of emphasis. I think NC State's probably going to jump out to a lead like they did in that first week, especially if they get the ball first. I think it'll be another one of those kind of grinding drives with short passes, couple quarterback draws, and just running the ball, trying to establish the possession early. Might not score, but you prove that you can move the ball a little bit. I don't see them going three and out very much against this defense, at least early on.
Yeah.
And then, they might take a shot, but I think the NC State defense probably the pass rush frustrates Morris a little bit early. I think that's when you see one of those turnovers. Maybe he tries to push it down the field, feeling the pressure, and NC State's able to haul in an interception or something. Maybe force a fumble with Sloan and Harsh bearing down on him. Maybe one of those linebackers gets in there. Who knows? But I just think the first half was almost not quite as dominant a first half as they had against ECU, but sort of similar in terms of, oh, like NC State's got this under control early. I think Virginia makes a push in the second half. Morris starts to wheel and deal a little bit, and they pop a couple big plays, catch the defense off guard, catch this young secondary off guard a little bit. And I think NC State again has to kind of hold on and ultimately wins this one. I have them scoring 27 and Virginia scoring 20. Um,
See.
that's my prediction. I don't think it'll be a shootout. I think NC State's defense is good enough to sort of keep Virginia around that 20-point mark.
Mm. Yeah, and I'm gonna agree with you there. I don't think Virginia actually gets above 20. I think they stay around the 17 to 14 area. I'm gonna go
Okay.
17 on the higher side. In terms of NC State's offense, I think this is going to be a Kurt Roper, like this is going to be the game that he's going to come back to and say, this is where we were able to establish the run and find that consistency. So I'm going to go with 24 for NC State, same as last week. So, just because I don't think it's going to be that high scoring like you said. I just think both of these teams are going to potentially run the ball a little bit early, and then you're going to see that clock drain out. And I just don't envision above 30 points. It could certainly happen,
Yeah.
but I just don't think we
Well,
really
the
get
other
there.
thing to take into account, I think, from a week ago is NC State should have scored 30 points in that game.
Oh,
They
yeah, they
they
should have.
left 6 points on the board with the missed field goals. We don't know what the kicking situation is going to be. My guess, based on the way Doran was talking throughout the week, I bet we see Kanoa Vincent in the game over Konachinsky. I think you can't trot a kid out that missed two field goals, even if he was 91% in camp, like they said.
Yeah.
Um, because those are missed kicks that almost cost NC State the game. And
Hmm.
and I just, even though this isn't a conference game, it's a game where you can show the ACC that, hey, we're better than this team that started well and sort of establish yourself in the standings before the league season even starts, which I think is important.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think if there was a game to kind of fully like assert yourselves as, yeah, we're one of the better teams. I think this is an important week to kind of build on that, but I think it's definitely next week against Wake Forest to kind of say that's the game where I feel like I know we don't know what's going to happen later today, but I think that's the game where if they do get above like the 30, 40 point mark and they have a dominant win, then that's where you're really asserting yourself as an offense and as a one of the better teams in the ACC.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you there. I think, we'll see what happens in the game here against Virginia, but I just I'm not quite there yet on this Tony Elliott project. I think they're moving in the right direction, but at the end of the day, it's just historically, it's not a it's not a football program that I've ever been like, oh, Virginia.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
basketball. And I know even the basketball history is relatively fresh, but it's just they had some solid seasons under Bronco Mendenhall, but they've never quite been in that upper echelon of the ACC that NC State has been in a couple of times in the Doran era. But this is, to me, a game where NC State has to prove it's still a tier above Virginia. And I think they
Yeah.
do. I think they do. Worst case scenario for me, it kind of starts with the defense for NC State. Um, yes, they were excellent in week one. Is it sustainable? And there's certainly a world where we were or where NC State fans were sold a dream. Um, and this pass rush isn't as sustainable as it was against ECU because they're playing bigger offensive linemen or they're playing higher level competition. And I think the secondary play is a concern moving forward because the competition on the perimeter is only going to get better and better throughout the course of the season. And we saw we saw some teams really get exposed in the secondary. Again, I mean, we saw North Carolina get absolutely dominated on the perimeter with the corners.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just like I worry about that being a problem in this game because of how much Morris has likes to throw the ball. I worry about the big play ability and the Virginia offense being able to just carve this secondary up a little bit. What do you think in terms of worst case scenario?
Worst case for me is even if they win, if Chandler Morris has a good day on the ground and he becomes a real threat and a just something that just looks like NC State struggles against. I touched on it a couple days ago, but if this team still wins and this defense still looks good, but they show the weakness against a mobile quarterback, then I think they're really in trouble. And I think it's something that Elliott will definitely have to figure out. Like I said, I don't think this rushing attack is going to get going, but if you let Morris have a 400-yard day on the ground and through the air, then I think that can have some bumps in the road in the future. Will I say he does that? No, but I think that's kind of worst case for me is if that defensive line and that linebacking core really showcase a weakness of keeping that contained in the pocket and being able to chase down a mobile guy like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I honestly I think the way that they tackled in that first game, just because, and I know it's not the same as containing a running quarterback, but
Yeah.
they flew to the
Oh
ball
yeah, they
fast.
were it was so evident on the tape just how fast they were moving in. For week one, the tackling was surprisingly like very
Yeah,
good because
yeah.
that was another thing that stood out to me. But yeah, you hit it right on the nail. The fact that these linebackers are just like Sean Brown, like he was just everywhere. Like it
Hmm.
was it was really special to watch, honestly.
Yeah. So we'll see if they can sustain that. And I think it's more likely that they do. I'm just saying that in my head, that's the worst case scenario that's playing out. Um,
Yeah,
so bold prediction. We've written a lot about him this week, for me at least. I think the former teammate of Chandler Morris, Brian Nelson II, proves that he is the ball hawk that NC State wanted out of the transfer portal and intercepts his former quarterback, gets on the board with a pick, the first pick of the season for the Wolfpack.
wow, look at you. You're
I
you're trusting,
I'm
I like
trusting him. He's going to get more reps. We saw in the depth chart. He's probably going to be splitting more time with Jamel Johnson this week. Even though Dorn, I this is the problem with not watching practice is
yeah.
some of this stuff could be smoke screens. Ronnie Royal talked about, I'm really enjoying working behind these guys, and then he comes out as the starting safety in week one, or the starting free
Yeah.
safety in week one. And Doran's been saying like, man, Jamel Johnson really looked good in that first game, and he was not great outside of that game-winning tackle. And I think obviously, he did that was a huge play, and that's always going to be fresh on the mind of every coach because he did make a critical play. But I think overall his performance wasn't something to write home about. And you got Brian Nelson, an all-conference performer, to be your ball hawk corner. Um, I think he gets more involved this week.
That's fair. That is fair. I think for my bold prediction, I'm gonna exclude CJ Bailey's rushing numbers, but I think the two backs for NC State combine over 200 yards
Okay.
on the ground. That
Okay.
will be my bold prediction. I really do think that this Virginia front, based on just what I've seen, really can, you know, there'll be some more running lanes this week, hopefully. That's what
All
I'm
right.
what I'm banking on.
All right. 200 yards, Brian Nelson interception, 27-20 for me, 24-14 for Dan.
We'll do 14, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you have it. That's our game day preview of week two of NC State football. We're here. I'll be in the stadium, ready to go, uh, providing coverage on my Twitter at Senate Tucker, as well as the website Twitter account at Wolfpack on SI. Daniel will have a live game thread for you on the website that I'll make sure to throw up on the Twitter so that you can follow along during the game. He'll have updates and stuff throughout. Should be pretty great coverage. And then we'll have post-game coverage basically for the rest of the day, and keep you up to date on all things Wolfpack Week 2. Feel free to follow Daniel on his X at Daniel underscore Rios 72. As
Okay.
always, thank you very much for joining us for the NC State Insider podcast. Daniel, anything you want to say to our dedicated fan base?
Just enjoy the game.
Enjoy the
Enjoy the
game.
game.
It's that
Simple.
simple. It's another college
Yep.
football Saturday. Thanks, folks. Enjoy your day.